how much food would you actually have to grow to feed a family of 4 adults for an entire year? It's something a lot of gardeners talk about, but not many people break it down clearly. Hey there friends, I'm Andrew. I have a bachelor's degree in clinical chemistry and I've been gardening for a long time, long enough to learn a few things the hard way. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I approach this challenge. No fluff, just practical real-world guidelines that you can actually use, whether you're fully committed to self-sufficiency or trying to grow a little bit more of your own food each year. Let's dig in. What is self-sufficient gardening? It's growing enough food on your own to feed your family without having to rely on a grocery store. To break this down clearly, let's quickly look at nutritional requirements. For simplicity, I categorize these into 4 groups: carbohydrates, proteins, fats, vitamins, and micronutrients. In today's video, we're focusing exclusively on carbohydrate, the main energy source you'll need to grow to sustain 4 adults. But if this video gets 500 likes, I'll put together another video specifically covering how to grow protein sources next. So hit that like button if you'd like to see that. Before we dive deeper, let's set some realistic expectations. Even with years of gardening and farming experience, jumping straight into full self-sufficiency isn't practical for most people, including myself. This is definitely something best tackled in stages. Personally, right now, I'm at the point where I'm growing about 10% of the food that I consume. Each year, I try to increase that percentage, but gradual progress is key. How much carbohydrate-rich foods you'd need to grow to feed your family for a full year? Let's talk staple crops, the backbone of any self-sufficient garden or civilization. These are your calorie powerhouses. They store well, they grow reliably, and they keep your family fueled all year long. These crops built civilization. In this video, I'm focusing on reliable high-calorie staples like potatoes, sweet potatoes, corn, sunchokes, yams, rice, wheat, and rye. When planning your garden, select crops that grow easily in your specific climate and soil. Here in coastal Massachusetts, my top staples are going to be potatoes like red, Yukon Gold, and russets, sweet potatoes, corn varieties, mostly the popping or cornmeal types. Then there's sunchokes, also known as Jerusalem artichokes. And as you'll see, these would function more so as a backup crop. One crucial tip is to never rely on crops from a single plant family. Let's say you only plant potatoes, red, gold, russets. They're all closely related, which means that they all share the same vulnerabilities. You get one wave of potato beetles or a single disease outbreak could wipe out your entire crop. But by mixing it up and planting tubers like sweet potatoes and sunchokes, in addition to the potatoes, each from different plant families, you significantly lower your risk. Here's a graphic to give you an idea of calories produced per square foot. Throughout this video, I'll use the standard measurements of garden beds being 30 inches wide by 100 feet long. That's a manageable, practical size. If you'd like to see what crops I'd choose for a different state or a completely different climate, let me know by liking this video and dropping a comment below. I'd love to make that video next. Or maybe the protein one next. We'll see. Let me know which ones you guys want to see. Let's break down the calories needed to grow enough staple crops for 4 adults. The average adult needs about 2,000 calories a day. Now multiply that by 365 days and you get a big number. That is per year per person. For a family of 4, that adds up to about 3 million calories for 1 year. As a reminder, we're focusing just on carbohydrates of that diet, which is about 1/3 of the total calories. That means we're aiming to grow 1 million calories worth of starchy staple crops. To spread the risk and increase resilience, I'm dividing those calories across 4 different crops. 30% from potatoes, which comes to about 330,000 calories. 30 20% from corn, again, 330,000 calories, 30% from sweet potatoes, and the final 10% from sunchokes at 100,000 calories. This mix helps protect against crop failure by rotating between different plant families, each with their own strengths and weaknesses. Take corn, for example. A serious pest you might encounter is the corn borer, a moth whose larvae tunnel into the corn stalks, the ears, and the cobs, weakening the plant and drastically reducing the yields. They're a major threat to crops in the grass family, like corn and sometimes sorghum. But the good news? They don't touch your potatoes. They don't touch your sweet potatoes or your sunchokes, because those crops come from a completely different plant family. So even if your corn gets wiped out in a bad year, the other staples can carry the weight. That's the beauty of growing diverse, calorie-dense crops from different families. It adds resilience to your food system and helps you avoid putting all your calories in one basket. Next, we'll calculate how many standard garden beds you'd need per crop. Before we keep going though, I just want to take a moment to say thank you, a big warm shout out to our 2 channel members, Jerry D and Roxy5. Your support helps keep these videos coming. And to everyone who's still watching at this point in the video, seriously, thank you. Your viewership means everything to me. If you're still with me, let's have some fun. Drop the word favorite in the comments to let me know that you're still here. Even if you don't normally comment on videos, it's super easy to do, and honestly, it lights up my day to get those notifications and know that you're enjoying the content. All right, let's get back to the garden. So how does this actually look in the garden? We've already split up our calorie needs across 4 staple crops. Now let's break down how many garden beds it would take to grow enough of each one. First up, potatoes. A well-managed 100-foot bed of potatoes can produce around 300 pounds of potatoes. And with 358 calories per pound, that adds up to roughly 100,000 calories per bed. To hit our target of just under 300,000 from potatoes, we need about 3 beds. That's it. 3 beds of spuds and you've got 1/3 of your starch needs covered. Every year, I plant shitted first earlies like the red-skinned white-fleshed potatoes weeks before the last frost and harvest it in June. This opens up the bed for a second round of potatoes or possibly corn, possibly doubling the yield of this bed. Next is corn, but not sweet corn. We're talking about corn grown for grain, like flour or cornmeal. A single bed might give you around 58 pounds of usable dry grain, and corn is incredibly calorie dense, about 16,000 calories per pound. What that means is that one bed will yield nearly 100,000 calories. So again, about 3 beds gets us to our goal. Now, sweet potatoes. A solid bed can give you around 250 pounds, and each pound carries about 380 calories. That's 100,000 calories per bed, which puts us right in the same ballpark. 3 beds of sweet potatoes, and we're on track. Though I'll be honest, with better conditions, I think that this crop can do even more. Sweet potatoes take a really long time to slip, so I would start the process in as early as January to ensure that they can be planted as rooted slips in early to mid-May. And finally, we have sunchokes. These are super low effort, almost no maintenance once they're established. A bed can yield 375 pounds, though they're less calorie dense, about 75 usable calories per pound. That works out to be about 30,000 calories per bed, so to get your 10% share from sunchokes, we'll need about 3.5 beds. These are best left in the ground all winter and harvested when needed or in the spring for replanting, or eating in the spring as well. I call that the hungry gap, when not a lot of food is ready. So in total, we're talking a dozen 30-inch by 100-foot beds. 4 staple crops grown in the right ratio can cover 1/3 of a family's annual caloric needs, all in one space that fits inside of a football end zone. So now that we've crunched the numbers, the next question is, what does that actually look like on the ground? How much space does it take to grow all of this? Let's take a walk through the layout, from the full footprint to individual beds, and break down how you could scale this in your own backyard or Homestead. This yellow rectangle represents a garden area measuring 100 feet long by 42 feet wide. I placed here over a football field just to give you a sense of size. This isn't a huge piece of land, but it's enough to make a serious dent in feeding a family of 4. Just remember, this is 1/3 of the needed calories for this family, just the main carbohydrate or energy for their needs. Zooming in a bit, we've overlaid 2 full-length tractor trailers end to end to represent the 100 feet of length, and a school bus to show roughly 40 feet of width. This makes it easier to imagine how this garden would look in real life. It's long, narrow, and totally manageable for a serious backyard grower or homestead. The scale here on the images I'm about to show you aren't perfect. These visuals are simply meant to be an aid. Inside that highlighted space, we can fit 12 30-inch wide garden beds, each separated by 1-foot walkway. This layout maximizes growing space while still leaving enough room to move around and work comfortably. The total width here is 42 feet, which includes all 12 beds plus the 11 walkways in between. These walkways are not wasted space. In many cases, the roots from nearby plants will occupy the soil space beneath. Now, we divide the garden into 4 main sections. In the upper left, we've planted 6 half rows of corn in a square formation. This is intentional because corn performs better when they're planted in blocks rather than in rows, especially for wind pollination. In the upper right quadrant, we've planted 6.5 rows of sunchokes. Both corn and sunchokes grow tall, which is why they're placed at the north end of the garden. That way they won't cast shade on the rest of the crops. Since in most of the United States, the sun travels primarily across the southern sky. The bottom half of the garden is divided lengthwise. The upper portion is dedicated to 3 rows of sweet potatoes and the lower portion to 3 rows of potatoes. These crops are low growing and won't interfere with light exposure for anything else in the plot. The sweet potatoes will grow vines in every direction and could curb the growth towards the potatoes, but let them crawl through the corn and sunchokes. I've been experimenting for a few seasons now, planting beans and squash amongst the corn. That is an option. But we won't be talking about that more in this video. Check out this video up here on the 3 Sisters planting method if you want to learn more. Zooming in even further, here's what the bed spacing looks like up close. Each bed is 30 inches wide with a 12-inch walkway between. Within the corn section, plants are spaced 9 inches apart with rows spaced at 24 inches. This gives each plant enough room to reach its max potential, ensures good air circulation, and keeps the garden efficient and productive. Growing enough food for your family isn't just about numbers on paper. It comes with real-world challenges, from watering and pest pressure to compost, storage, and time management. There's a lot that goes into making self-sufficient garden actually work. Let's walk through what you'll want to plan for. First up is irrigation. Watering can become a full-time job without the right setup. The best system I've found, hands down, is drip irrigation. I recommend laying down 2 to 3 lines of drip tape per bed depending on your space. If you're running everything at once, you'll need strong water pressure, which most standard city water lines can't handle. So split it up. For example, rows 1 through 4 at 7 a.m. and rows 5 through 8 at 8 a.m. and so on. Automating this with timers makes massive difference, especially during dry spells. When it comes to pest control, I've found that the best defense is a healthy plant in healthy soil. Nutrient-dense, well-aerated beds create plants that are naturally more resilient to both pests and disease. That said, no garden is immune. Stay observant, check under the leaves, watch for signs of stress, and intervene if you need to. But don't stress it. It's not perfect. Small losses are just a part of the process. Fertility, compost, and soil management. This is the foundation of everything. For new beds, start by laying down a landscape tarp to suppress existing grass and weeds. After a few weeks, Cover that area with about 4 inches of high quality compost, and you're ready to plant directly into it. If you want to be even more careful, lay it out all winter long. In every following year, top up your beds with about 2 inches of compost to replenish the nutrients. You can also add slow release organic fertilizers like feather meal, bone meal, or micronutrient blends. Just follow the directions on the label. I've linked some of the products that I use down in the description, and if you want to go deeper into this topic, check out the video linked at the end of this video or head over to the garden update playlist. I cover it all in detail. Finally, let's talk about time and labor. This scale of gardening isn't a daily grind, but there's key moments in the season where everyone needs to pitch in. Planting, harvesting, and preserving food all happen in waves, and they require focused effort. If you're using clean compost, the weeding burden is minimal, but preserving food, freezing, canning, drying, that's where the real work comes in. It's 100% doable, but don't underestimate the time that it takes to get it all done. Growing the food is only half the story. The other half is keeping it from going to waste. That's where good storage and preservation comes in. Whether you're root cellaring, canning, dehydrating, or freezing, how you store your harvest has a big impact on what you grow and how much space you'll need. Let's look at how to match your storage methods for these 4 crops that we've just covered. Root cellaring for potatoes. Root cellaring is hands down the best method for storing potatoes. Make sure you choose russets for these. Russets are best for storage. These crops thrive in cool, dark, humid conditions and can last for months without refrigeration. If you've only got a basement, insulated garage, or even a buried cooler, you've got root cellaring potential, but from my experience, a typical closet or basement will not do. A dedicated, special built root cellar is essential. Curing for long-term storage. Now this is going to be sweet potatoes. They're a little bit different. They need to be cured first, kept warm and humid for about 7 to 10 days after harvest. After curing, they'll store for several months in a dry, dark, slightly warmer spot than typical root cellar conditions. Think like 55 to 60 Fahrenheit. A standard residential basement has worked well for me here. Okay, for corn, if you're growing it for grain like popcorn or cornmeal, you'll want to dry it fully on the stalk, then harvest, husk, and shell it. Stored in airtight containers, dried corn keeps for a year or more on any old shelf. The best part, none of these crops require freezing, canning, or electricity. That makes them ideal for a self-sufficient setup, especially if you're focused on long-term, low-maintenance storage with minimal inputs. Now, overwintering. One thing that stands out about Sunchokes is their ability to self-preserve right in the ground. If you're in a climate where the ground doesn't freeze solid, you can leave them in place all winter and simply harvest as needed. It's one of the easiest, most low-effort ways to store a crop. No digging, no bins, no prep. But if you do need to harvest them all at once, whether you're cleaning a bed or worried about deep frosts, you've still got options. Sunchokes can be stored short-term in a root cellar or sliced and dried for longer shelf life. Drying concentrates their earthy flavor and inulin content, making them great for use in soups, stews, or even ground into flour for baking. Just slice them thin, dry them fully in a dehydrator or an oven, and store them airtight in a cool, dry place. Whether left in the soil or preserved in jars, Sunchokes offer one of the most forgiving and flexible storage profiles in the garden, making them an underrated gem for any self-sufficiency plan. And it's an added bonus that they're native to where I live. All right, let's bring this all together. The big takeaway here is start with a realistic goal. focus on calorie-dense staples that store well, and plan your garden space around what you'll actually use and have the ability to preserve. Don't let the scale of the numbers overwhelm you. You don't have to grow everything at once. Start with 1 or 2 staple crops and build from there. Maybe this year it's potatoes and corn. Next year you'll add sweet potatoes or sunchokes. Maybe it's all of those four crops in a single bed. Remember, self-sufficiency is a process, not a one-season goal. I've been gardening for years and I'm still learning and scaling bit by bit. The key is consistency. Make a plan, grow what you can, and let each season teach you something new. I'd love to hear from you. Have you tried growing enough food for your family? What's worked for you and what's been a challenge? Drop a comment below and just type favorite if you've made it to this point. Even if you don't usually comment, it genuinely makes my day when those notifications show up. If you want a deeper dive, check out the garden update playlist at the end of this video. I've also got a seed giveaway going on for members, and behind the scenes content every week, and early access to videos each week. Thank you so much for walking. I'm tired, I guess. The sun has set. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.